In the last video I posted on YouTube, called the number one problem in dogs, argument. What I consider to be the biggest problem in the world. Canine. Nowadays, there's a common lack of reading, a lack of objective truth in how the canine world is understood, which leads to a whole bunch of subsequent problems. And one of our followers made this comment. Is there room for subjective perception and reality? Or does everything have a final objective answer? I think the question is totally legitimate and really gets to the fundamental point we need to try to clarify. And to do that, we're going to step out of the dog world and use another example.
It has never been proven in the lab, ever, that water adheres to a sphere. There we have the first one. Empirical evidence, and they'll give you 50 reasons. But it can't be replicated in a lab. Our flat Earth model is replicable in the lab.
This guy says there are 50 reasons we could argue. Actually, there are 500,000. Millions. But I'm going to use one that I think he can understand too. If we want to launch an object into orbit, let's say, for example, a satellite, we should launch the rocket eastward to take advantage of and maximize the Earth's rotation. Because getting into orbit has to do with the speed of the object parallel to the surface of the Earth. Objects that are in low Earth orbit move at about 7.8 kilometers per second, or what comes out to be 28,000 kilometers per hour. At that speed, satellites complete an orbit around the Earth in about 90 minutes. And they do it about 300 kilometers away from the Earth's surface. But the distance in the actual equation used is not the distance to the Earth's surface, but towards the Earth's core. With all this, I want to say that for this guy to be able to say the nonsense he's saying, to record it with a camera, send it into space to bounce off a satellite, which suddenly gives you the ability to, 1. Have an internet connection that the entire global population can communicate through and access, or, for example, have GPS that triangulates your position in real time. Through these satellites that are in orbit, it's necessary for the Earth to be a sphere, to have a rotation on its own axis, and to orbit around the Sun, just like the other bodies in the solar system. Through these satellites that are in orbit, it is necessary for the Earth to be a sphere, that it rotates on itself, that it has a rotation around the Sun, like the other bodies in the solar system. The fact that this guy has a subjective perception and wants to live in a flat Earth model in his head, which does not affect his reality. Can this guy live in a subjective patch of feelings where he's convinced the Earth is flat? Yes. Is that directly related to objective reality? Subjective perceptions and opinions don't significantly impact our functioning. We're protected by objective reality, and we feel like having them, we can afford them because they really don't have any significant impact on how we function in life. Because we're protected by an objective reality, regardless of what you think. And this is exactly the same in the dog world. As long as a dog is easy, as long as you, reading the reality of a dog has no direct consequence on its well-being or the danger it may be in, you can afford whatever luxuries you want. But that doesn't mean that all subjective opinions hold the same validity, or that just because you have them, they deserve the same space in public discourse. Thousands of years ago, when it rained or there were storms, people who didn't have access to the information we have today, I thought it was Thor or some other god, that he was angry and sent them the storms. When, today we know perfectly well that water changes its state, depending on external conditions. It's not a matter of you having an opinion, and that opinion, just because you think it's yours and you have the right to have it, holds the same validity in reality as others that are more informed. All of this would change a lot if every time someone had a subjective opinion, they were willing to live with the consequences of those opinions. In other words, if this guy thinks the Earth is flat, those opinions. In other words, if this guy thinks the Earth is flat, he shouldn't have access to any phone, to the internet, and he shouldn't be able to get on a plane to travel. He shouldn't have access to any phone, to the internet, and he shouldn't be able to get on a plane to travel. But since he has the right to all those things, he's allowed to live in a bubble where he hides behind a microphone. He says it convinced any nonsense that crosses his mind. We put on subtitles, we play music, and all our emotional opinions hold the same validity.